Since the release of my first episode of the Hugo Martin interview series, Hugo Martin, game director of Doom Eternal, has done a sort of world tour of the Doom Eternal community, being seen on different YouTubers' channels such as Midnight, Under the Mayo, and a few others. Interesting videos have resulted in this, links to all of them that I am aware of down in the description below. But as for my interview, we are on the second to last part. Today, in our conversation with Hugo, we are discussing the comparison in game development ideologies and mechanical changes between Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. The next and final episode will be about the future of Doom Eternal and all of the future content we can expect for both the game and the studio directly from the horse's mouth. But without any further ado, here is Hugo Martin comparing and contrasting the two games that he worked on at id Software. I'm just gonna list off some stuff that isn't in Eternal, and if you could just quickly tell me, why that wouldn't work on the Eternal Doom demo. QuakeCon 2018 showcase of Eternal, you showed off the same number of chainsaw pips as it had in 2016. Why was that reduced down to 3?
Balance, that's it. The fun zone is all about thinking, really trying to keep you engaged. Look, you're either into it or not. If you just want I just want to shoot stuff the game, I don't know that you're going to like Doom Eternal. That was it. It was mostly to try to dial it in to exactly. It's a really meticulously designed combat loop. In some regards, the hammer, I let it go because I fully understand that it kind of compromises a lot of the fun zone in the combat loop once you master it, but it's the last DLC, so who cares? It'll be interesting to design encounters around it, but there's no doubt that there's a disruption there. It's a bit of a celebration. We let you have some extra fun at the end, but I don't know that would be in the base game. So it was just balance, the short answer.
The hologram and the siphon.
Everything was balanced. No fat. So laser focused. This is the combat loop. That's why there's help me out here, Tyler. People who say that Doom Eternal is too restrictive, that is not correct. When I watch you play and I watch me play and I watch other, we don't even do the same thing. But we're all kind of, there is a general sphere of execution that we all remain inside of, but we do it all different ways. Sometimes when I get bored, I'll just purposely lean on certain mods to do certain things, and it's really fun. The last thing I wanted to do was throw out some tactical thing that distracted my enemies. That belongs in a tactical stealth game. That's almost akin to throwing a coin and they what's over there? And I think it was cool in 2016, but I don't like it. It's not what an F-22 fully loaded with a full rack of missiles would do.
And so I'm gonna guess things like the double shot super shotgun, the siege mode on the not ballista, the railgun, and the pistol is in entirety all balanced as well.
100%. Every game has a flaw. Eternal's flawed. I probably take this too far, but in my stream, there's probably some therapeutic reason why I'm like this, because I want to judge myself harsher than anybody else would judge me. But I tend to rip the things that I work on apart, and I see those weapons and how they work. It's fun and it's powerful. There's an aspect of the hammer that kind of goes there, where it's this is kind of OP at moments, and there's not really set up entirely for people who mastered it, but enjoy yourself. Those guns are just, that when you master them, they're imbalanced.
So rune trials and upgradable runes, all of the upgrade stuff seemed to be consolidated into a few systems, and those systems were simplified. Was that just for flow?
Yeah, and I don't think it was simplified enough. That's one of the criticisms that I have of Eternal, is that I'd like to experiment in even a further consolidation. So fewer things that do more. And I think we have lots of currencies that do a certain amount of stuff, and we streamlined simplifying runes, simplifying all the ways you could upgrade them, but we have a lot of currencies, and I find that that's something that, again, my whole dream, everybody's, is get as many people into the fun zone as possible. And what happens is when there's so many currencies, sometimes I think there's an initial, I don't know about you, Tyler, but my first hour with any game is usually frustration of not understanding all the, what is it? There is a joy to a Ubisoft game because there's a consistency there that you're okay, I know this, There's pros and cons to approaching things that way, but I do think that there's probably one too many currencies in Eternal. But yeah, it was to simplify. It's funny, it was to simplify, and I think we're still too complicated, but yes.
As long as there's still a lot of cool secrets to find, simplification is
oh
whatever.
Yeah, I have to say, Tyler, I watch a lot of your content and I really appreciate the support. It's really for the whole team when we get to see someone like you enjoy it. You know what I mean? That's what we made it for. I see your room, and I gotta be honest, that's the Doom guy's man cave. Somebody said to me, they're why does he have a toy shelf, and why does he collect toys? And I'm because it's awesome. Everybody collects toys. No, they don't. Okay, I'm sorry.
If you were to remake 2016 now, What would you change?
So look, you know what I'm learning? Don't change anything. Like I think a lot of the stuff that they did in the original Star Wars with the special editions were better, and I don't like them. I just want it to remain the same. I think each game now needs to go on the shelf and be a time capsule of what it is. Doom Eternal has kind of had like a second life here with the DLCs. I saw a critic who was kind of critical of it. Well, I thought 2016 was better and stuff. And he's replaying it now. At the end of his stream, it was cool. It was cool to hear him, get there. Like he realized, like it's just that Eternal asks more of you. So 2016 is very accessible. It's like take this shotgun and shoot stuff, and when they flash, do this thing. And that's great. There's a simplicity to that reaches a lot of people. But then I think on the negative side, the comments that I always read was that it got repetitive, which it did. So with Eternal, I think it takes a little longer to get there, but when you get there, I think you'll find a deeper experience. It's been really cool to see people get there with Eternal, even more recently, which is kind of interesting. I find with games, if you build it, they will come. I see that happening with Prey. It's cool to see people start Reddit threads on Prey and be like, this is a good game. You have to play this game. I just feel like a good game will find an audience, And not that we were struggling to find an audience, but still, it's just cool to see that people get it and it clicks with them eventually.
Follow-up question to that then from Two Clicks Philip, who made this big review that you had shouted out on your stream a couple weeks ago. He wanted, first of all, to ask what your favorite video review of Doom Eternal was and if it was his or not.
So his is really up there, honestly, because he perfectly summarizes exactly what we talked about during development. I had this kind of general view of like what I called the engagement graph, and it was sort of like this line that went like this and then like this, and then it kind of trailed off. What I said was you come in and there's a promise of fun immediately, and basically the first 5 minutes of fun is like I pull the trigger, destructible demons, the movement, like just a good feeling game. Maybe you get to kill a couple guys inside the barge and stuff in Doom Eternal. And then quickly, I would say the first Arachnotron, you dip down into a period of frustration because we're going to teach you something. There's a mechanic you have to learn. And if we're not firm with you, you'll just exploit it. 2016 is a good example. Like, hey, you should do this thing. You should upgrade this thing. And then most players are like, I'm just going to keep using the shotgun until it doesn't work anymore. And then the game's like, it's never going to stop working. Once they hit frustration, then they look for answers, and the game is there with a tutorial, a weapon, a mod, a point, whatever. And they start working their way up the engagement graph, and eventually they reach the peak of mastery. And our entire goal with Eternal was to guide people up the engagement graph to achieve a level of mastery on whatever difficulty was good for them, and get as many people there as possible.
His other question for you then was, is there anything that you feel that 2016 has done better than Eternal post-mortem?
I would say accessibility. Everybody can shotgun and glory kill. So the core of that game is basically shoot, stagger, glory kill. That's a very accessible loop. So I think accessibility is stronger in 2016.
2016, like you've said a couple of times, seems to have a lot of the Doom 3 DNA in it, at least, especially from like a visual perspective, UAC and Hell in particular. What is your response to the common critique of, well, I liked 2016 because it was darker and because it was a lot of the UAC base?
Nothing. We have to make new experiences. You have to stay true to yourself. It still has to be a Doom game, but man, who wants another 12 hours of red hallways and Mars Hell? There's no way that's working. My comment to that is like, there's a visual exhaustion that takes place, like more red.
So I'm going to end it here with a question from Dave Oshry, who's the founder of the New Blood studio, the Dusk and Medieval.
I love Dave, and I love New Blood. Love it.
Has the team taken any inspiration from the other retro-inspired shooters that Doom 2016 in itself inspired?
Always taking inspiration from everything, honestly. Hard to call out anything specific other than energy bouncing back and forth. New Blood is doing an outstanding job of old and new, and more new than old. I don't look at New Blood and I think, oh, those are the old games. Like, I don't think that. New Blood, to me, is what it sounds like. It's a new genre of gaming. I have the utmost respect for all of those guys. There's this new genre of gaming that I think is starting to happen with like challenging skill-based single-player FPS games. My whole shtick is like, why can't I have a game that gives me the same buzz, the same competitive drive, the same skill-based challenge of a multiplayer game in a single-player game where I control the difficulty and it's against AI? The sweatiness of multiplayer. It's just like, I love that these games offer you that kind of experience, but in a single-player game. And so I love those guys. I love all.
Get subscribed for the next episode. It will be the last one in likely a long time. Thank you very much to everybody for making this possible, and thank you very much for watching this. I'm Tyler McVicker, signing off. Adios.